Does that mean every month is 30 days? Of course not. Does that mean a Gregorian year is made up of 350 days? Of course not. It's complete nonsense. As you know, missionaries claim that if you just read your own Bible, Jesus is there. Missionaries claim that there are hundreds of verses in the Jewish scriptures that demonstrate that Jesus is the promised Messiah. I'm not kidding. And one of the most striking of these passages is Daniel chapter 9. The church insists that there's actually a prophecy buried in the book of Daniel that predicts the precise date that Jesus would be crucified. Now, as it turns out, the New Testament does not make this claim. Now, I explained Daniel 9, how the last 4 passages are abused. The last 4 verses of the 9th chapter of Daniel, I explained how it's been completely corrupted by the church. And if you look at the link above my head or the link in the description, you can go in there in great depth. I'm not going to go into it right now. But as it turns out, Christians are in a very, very unfortunate predicament, given that they can't, for the most part, read the Bible in its original language, depending on corrupt translations. I explained this in that other video. I'm not going to go into it now. But it's a prophecy of 70 weeks. But in this case, the 70 weeks are 70 weeks of years, which means each day is a year. So a week is 7 years, and 70 weeks is 490 years. Very simple. I'm not going into it now. Again, I go into it in that other video with the link that's above my head and in the description. The church alters the text, as I explained in that video as well, meaning the word Mashiach, the Hebrew word Mashiach, appears in the Jewish Bible 39 times. In all 37 other places where that exact word appears, Christian Bibles correctly translated as anointed. It's the right, correct translation of the word Mashiach. But only here in Daniel 9, they translate the word Mashiach as Messiah. Not only that, they put a capital M there. There's no such thing as a capital M. I don't go into it here. I'm not going to do this now with you. Go to the link. They even put a definite article, the Messiah, and they insert it there. They conflate the 7 weeks, which means 49 years, and 62 weeks, which is 434 years, as one period of time to eliminate one of the anointed. Because really what's going on here is Cyrus is the first anointed person who emerges a half a century, 7 weeks, after the destruction of the first temple. Again, I'm not going to this now. Go into this previous video if you want to understand Daniel 9. The key point is they conflate 7 weeks and 62 weeks as though there's one anointed one who's cut off after 69 weeks. I explained that in the other video. I'm not going to it now. Here's what I wanted to focus like a laser beam in on. And that is, how do they construct any timeline or chronology? Listen very carefully. So they say these 69 weeks, 69 times 7 is 483. So where do they start counting and where do they want to end? So they claim that the place to start counting is not where you're supposed to start counting or anything like that. Like when Cyrus built it, they gave the command to build the temple, build Jerusalem. Oh, no, but that's the real place. The key is, they say that it's an event in the book of Nehemiah. Who was Nehemiah? He was a cupbearer for Darius. A cupbearer meant a lot in the ancient world. It meant that the king really trusted you. It meant you were an advisor to the king. You had enormous access to power. In this case, it was Darius as a Persian king. The temple had already been built during this period. It was fully built as Jerusalem was fully built. The crisis that comes into view was there were people who did not want a Jewish state. There were people who were damaging the walls of Jerusalem, the gates of Jerusalem, and Nehemiah wanted permission from Darius to repair the walls. That's all. It wasn't building the wall, it wasn't building something, none of that. So it's all nonsense. It's all really chicanery. This is all misdirection. But what missionaries claim is the place to start counting the 483 years is Nehemiah chapter 2, the first 10 passages. Again, go to that video. I'm not going into it now. What is germane to this video is if you count forward from what they say, you begin in 445 BCE, if you start in 445 BCE, and you count forward 483 years, remember there's no year zero, you then, there's the problem, you land in the year 39 CE. You wind up in 39. Well, that's a massive problem. Why is it a problem? The problem is that according to all the Gospels, Jesus was dead by 39. Christians disagree over when the crucifixion was. I'm not going into that here. It could be 30, 33. It's not germane. But certainly, according to the church, Jesus is crucified, is dead by the year 39. He'd been already crucified. In fact, Pontius Pilate, who was the Roman authority here, he held that authority during the 30s. He stepped down from his authority in the year 37. I mean, 39, there was no Pontius Pilate in authority. This whole thing doesn't work. Now, how do missionaries finagle this? How do they get out of this problem? Well, they can't. So they do is they come up with something that's really a scam. What's the scam? That is, they invent the idea of a prophetic year. Now, I want to make this very, very clear. Missionaries don't know any better. They've not invented this. They're not evil. They just read this in missionary books and websites, and they regurgitate it. It's not they're evil, they just don't know any better. But they have this idea, missionaries do, of something called a prophetic year. There's no such thing. There's no such thing as a prophetic year. It does not exist. But they claim there is, and it's a year that consists of 360 days. Imagine that, a prophetic year is 360 days. What's the purpose? Why are they doing this? Why are they engaging in this kind of sophistry? Because they need to shave years off. So if you take 5¼ days off each year, you can then remove enough years to get it back from 39, getting it back to 30 or 31 or 33 or whatever. The key point is they got to take a year. But you can't have a 360-day year. Why not? You know the reason. Because if you have a year that's 360 days, you lose 5¼ days every year. Why is this a problem? The big problem. Deuteronomy 16, verse 1, we are told in the Bible that Passover, which is the 15th day of the first month, must come out during the springtime. It's a Chag Aviv. It's a springtime festival. Well, imagine if this year Passover were April 20th. I'm just making that up. Well, then if it's a year, a prophetic year is 360 days, next year Passover will come out on on April 15th. The following year, April 10th. The next year, April 5th. And it would just keep creeping back. And very quickly, Passover would come out in the middle of the winter. It would just run around the whole, and it can't. You follow? This is completely made up. So there is no such thing as a prophetic year, and you can't have a year that consists of 360 days. The reason is that you couldn't maintain the seasons. The seasons, after all, are determined by the solar calendar, not the lunar calendar. Again, I go into this in this video. Here's the point. Missionaries, when seeking to prove that there is a prophetic year that consists of 360 days, what do they use as a device? What's the prop? Like magicians use a prop. How do they do this? Listen carefully. In Genesis 7 and 8, the context of the flood, we are told a couple of things. We're told that the period of the flood, not just the rain, but the period when the earth was filled with water, consisted of 150 days, and we're also told that this began with the 17th day of the second month until the 17th day of the seventh month. Missionaries then argue, from the 17th day of the second month to the 17th day of the seventh month, that's 5 months, is 150 days. Therefore, they extrapolate that every month is 30 days and a year is 360 days. This is complete, absolute nonsense for the reasons I've explained, but I want to take this further. Let's take the Gregorian calendar for just one moment. You'll see this all very clearly. In the Gregorian calendar, if you start counting February 17th, February the second month on a regular secular calendar, so from February 17th, count 5 months forward till July 17th, the seventh month, How many days is it? If it's not a leap year, February 17th until July 17th is exactly 150 days. Exactly. Does that mean every month is 30 days? Of course not. Does that mean a Gregorian year is made up of 350 days? Of course not. It's complete nonsense. So what they're doing is they're simply extrapolating in order to play with the text, in order to convince you that a prophetic year is 360 days. This is nonsense. Get back to the original. Shalom. If you enjoyed this program, please like and subscribe.
אדון עולם אשר מלך בטרם כל יציר נברא ואת נעשה בחפצו כל